Welcome to CADvantage. In this video, I'm going to create a steel structure. So I will first set up a structural grid and then add steel members, footings, ladders, railings, etc. to complete it. Now I'm going to go over to my project manager and make sure I have the correct project open. So I'm going to open the project XML file. And within my plan 3D drawings, I have a folder, one each for equipment, piping and steel structure. So I'm going to expand the steel structure folder and I'm going to open my structure drawing. So double click on that drawing. And here we are. Now you want to make sure that you are in the correct workspace setting. Currently you can see on the ribbon I have my structure tab here, which is the third tab from the left. And if you were say in a different setting, let's say we were in PID PIP, and you would see that on the ribbon don't have a tab for structures, so you want to make sure that you are in the correct workspace setting, or you can switch to the correct one in order to access your structures tab. So you want to be in 3D piping, which is what we have here at the top of the ribbon, and there's your structures tab. You have settings here, and under member settings you can verify that you are in the correct standard. Now my current shape standard, you can see you have a bunch of shape standards here, and I'm going to stick with the American Institute of Steel Construction. So I'm going to click OK and exit out of this currently. Going back to my home tab and going back to my layer properties manager. So what I have is some additional layers. You can also set up one layer each for your ladders, for your footings and gratings if you want them all on separate layers. That way you can freeze or isolate the layer you want to. Now you want to make sure that you create your design elements on the correct layer. Currently my grid layer has a green check mark, so that is my current layer. I'm going to close my layer properties manager, and now I am going to start creating my grid. So going back to the structure tab, and you have a grid here. So first thing, I want to make sure that my ortho is turned on, and you will create the grid. So you'll enter a name for the grid. So first let's click on the grid, and your current layer has to be the grid layer. So grid, and my grid name is steel structure practice, and here you have a coordinate system that you can pick to create the grid. So you can specify the world coordinate system, the user coordinate system, or the 3-point system. So if you select the 3-point system, it's going to ask you to specify the origin. So read the command area here, and it says specify origin. So I'm going to specify 0, 0. So it's 0. Hit tab, press 0 and press enter. Next you can see, again read the command area, it's asking to specify a point on the x-axis. So as I move the mouse along the x-axis, I'm going to pick any point here. So I'm going to pick this point. Again, make sure that the ortho is on when you do that. Next, if you read the command area, it says specify a point on the XY plane. So you want to go along your y-axis. So going along the y-axis, pick any point on the y-axis. Next, read your command area, specify a point on z-axis. So These 3 points specify the directions of 3 axes in the grid. Now that I have specified the coordinate system, I will enter the values for the axis points in the axis value edit box. For the purpose of this exercise, I have 0 inches and 16 feet as the axis value, 0 inches and 26 feet for the row value, 0 inches and 11 feet for the platform value. And you also want to make sure that you click here on this arrow that will update your values. So you want to click update, click that and click that, and then now at this point you still have the option to change the grid, so you can right click on the grid and then edit structure, and it will let you edit the values of the axis, row or the platform. Now please understand that the grid is not linked to the structural components. This is just an initial setup, and any changes made to the grid later will not make the components update automatically. You will need to adjust them manually. It is in place, and I'm going to add some beams and columns. Let's begin with the columns. So first I'm going to switch over to my steel structure. My current layer is grid and I'm switching to steel structure. And right here I want my snaps on. So most definitely I want my endpoint, midpoint and my perpendicular checked, and I want my snaps to be on. So I'm going to go over here on my structures tab. I first want to come here and change my model to line model and not outline, and I will explain in a minute. So we are in the line model and I'm going to add members. So click on members under the structure tab, and first let's go to settings and make sure that the shape standard is AISC, and the shape type I'm going with is a W. The size of the shape is 6 by 9, so W 6 by 9. Material standard ASTM, and the material code is A242. For my orientation, I'm going to pick a point right here in the middle. You can switch the orientation as you like, but for this member, for the column, I'm going with the middle point for the orientation, which is this point. And I'm going to click OK, and if you read the command area, it says to specify the start point of the structural member. So I'm going with the end point at the bottom and then go up vertically and press enter. Now you can see that there is this symbol that shows that there is a structural member even as you don't see the shape. So that confirms that we have a structural member along this column line, along the grid line. I'm going to repeat the same thing and add a member, same size, same shape and same orientation at this point, and press enter, same thing, and press enter, and finally the last column here and enter. I can show you the shape better if I switch over to my outline model, and you can see that I have 4 structural columns placed here. I'm going to go back to my line model just so that I can see my endpoints better and there is no confusion. I always prefer to add structural components in the line model, and that can be changed later. Now let's go back to member and go back to settings, and I'm going with the same shape type and the same size, but what I'm going to do is change the orientation. So what I'm going to do is under orientation I'm going to select the top middle orientation point, which is that. I'm going to click OK, and again to add the member, I'm going to specify the start point. So I'm going to go in the clockwise direction and select all of these 4 grid lines and then press enter. To switch over to the outline model so we can see. So what we want to do is we would need to edit the members so that we can take care of the overlap of all of these 3. So first I'm going to select my vertical member and I'm going to click edit structure, and this time I'm going to select the bottom middle orientation point, this one right here, and then I'm going to go over to trim the members when I have these 2 here. So let's zoom in here and see how we can trim it. So I'm going to go back to my cutting panel under the structures and I have a cut back member here. So I'm going to click that and then I'm going to specify this member first, and then it says to select the structural member to cut, and I'm going to select that and press enter. And now I'm going to use my miter tool, so I'm going to miter cut this, and then I'm going to do that everywhere else that it needs trimming. I'm now going to add footings below the columns. My current layer is steel structure. I'll change that over to footing. And the shape model is what is showing up now. So I'm going to change that to my line model. My ortho is on. And I'm going to have my endpoint, perpendicular and midpoint checked. So on the structure tab, I have the parts panel. Right here I have the footing. That creates a footing. Now if I read the command area, it says to specify the insert point or go to settings. So I'm going to go to settings, and here I have the geometry. So you can see in the preview window the length is here. You have the width and the depth. So I'm going with a length of 1 foot, a width of 1 foot and a depth of 2 feet. The standard is ASTM, the material is concrete, so I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to specify the insert point, so I'm going to go here and pick this endpoint. I'm going to hit the space bar and then the same thing here. So again space bar, pick the endpoint, and space bar and pick the endpoint. Now let's switch over to the shape model, and you can see the footings are now showing up clearly. And now let's move on to placing a ladder. So we go back to our line model, and here I'm going to change my layer to the ladder layer. And on the structure tab, parts panel, let's pick ladder, and again it's asking to specify the start point or takes you to ladder settings. So let's go to the settings for the ladder, and in the ladder settings dialog box you have 2 tabs. So there's the ladder tab and then there's the gauge tab. Ladder tab, you have a preview window here that defines the geometry. So you can see the width right here. I have entered 18 inches for the width, that's 1 feet 6 inches. That's the width 1 that you see in the preview window, and so on for the rest of the geometry. So I have an exit width of 2 feet and 8 inches. For the projection I have 3 feet 4 inches, and for the run distance 9 inches. The ladder shape is what defines the cross section of the steel member that makes up each component of the ladder. So for this purpose I have a ladder shape, that's the pipe shape, and I'm going to go back to the ladder tab, where I have also an option here. I can click on the switch X and Y axis. What that would do is rotate the shape by 90 degrees. Since we have a pipe shape that I've chosen, I'm not going to click this, so that stays unchecked. And I'm going to click on the gauge tab now. Now again in the gauge tab, you can see the geometry in the preview window. That means that the gauge start height, which would be 9 feet, which means that the gauge starts at 9 feet from the bottom of the ladder. Then you have these distances defined here in the preview window, and you can input your start height. The maximum distance that I have here is 5 feet, and then I have 1 inch, 1 feet 2 inches, then I have an angle of 45 degrees. So this angle right here, number 5, is 45 degrees. This angle again is 45 degrees. I have a height of 2 inches, that, and then the width is a quarter inch. You can also uncheck this if you do not want to draw a gauge. I'm going to keep that checked, and I'm going to click OK. And now you can see in the command area, it's asking to specify a start point of the ladder. So I'm going to press and hold the shift key in, and I'm going to right click somewhere in the drawing area. So shift and right click, and I'm going to pick from. So again, read the command area. It's asking to specify a start point of the ladder from the base point. So my base point is going to be this point here, and I'm going to specify an offset of 2 feet. So I'm going to press 2 feet, and then I'm going to hit the tab key and press 0, and I'm going to press enter. And now I will select the perpendicular. So I'm going to specify this perpendicular along this line. And looking at my command area, I am being prompted to specify a directional distance point. So in order to do that, from the bottom offset point, so that's my bottom offset point, from here I'm going to move along the y-axis. So this is along my y-axis, but I am going in the front, and I'm going 6 inches away from the front. So make sure you don't go in the back, but you move along the y-axis in the front. And here you want to specify a distance of 6 inches, and you can see the ladder. Let's switch over to the shape model. And yay, there's our cage and our ladder. And now I'm going to add railing to my model. So I'm currently on my railing layer, and I'm going to reorient the model. So you can change your view from here. Let's go to this view. You can also use the orbit tool to rotate the view in 3D space. And what I'm going to do is switch back to my line model, and I'm going to pick the railing. So let's go to the structure tab, parts panel, and pick railing. And let's look at the settings first. So you have the geometry. My handrail height here is 3 feet 4 inches, and the first mid-rail height is at 1 foot 8 inches. Then I have my first post at 10 inches and the second one at 5 feet. My handrail's shape is again the pipe configuration. Same thing for the middle rail. You can uncheck the middle rail if you choose to. And You can see the geometry in the preview window over here. So I'm going to click OK for my settings. And reading my command area, it's asking me to specify the start point. So my start point is going to be at the edge of the ladder rung where it intersects the top of the platform. So let's pick that, and then the end point here, here, and let's go back to where it intersects the ladder and press enter. And let's go to the grating layer and add some grating to the top of the platform. So that's my grating, and I'm going to go to my structure tab, and on the parts panel I'll click on the plate, and that will create a plate or a grating at the top of the platform. So you want to pick your grating type, and then the material code is right here. For thickness I'm going with 1/2 inch. For the height scale I'm going with 25, it's 2 feet and 1 inch. Justification is bottom. Shape is going to be new rectangular. I'm going to click create. I'm going to specify first point of the grate, which is going to be that point, and then the second point is the opposite point here. And let's go back to the shape model. Let's go to our home view, and that is how we finish the steel structure. Thank you for watching.